My name is Carson Steelman, and this is On Air with Heritage Action, a podcast built for conservatives. Twice a week, we break down some of the most important issues facing our country and talk about how you can get involved today in the fight for conservative values. On this episode, we're going to talk about the border and the recent hypocritical comments from liberal mayors as they finally start to realize the impact of Biden's border crisis. Since President Biden took office, his administration has been opening up the border by rolling back one Trump-era policy at a time. And we all know the impact has been catastrophic. Just last month, news broke that over 500,000 migrant gotaways at the border might even be in the United States today. So that means only since October, over 500,000 illegal migrants who were spotted trying to cross the border are potentially in our communities today. In the beginning, a lot of liberal mayors were defending Biden's dangerous border policies, calling them compassionate or trying to label the Trump administration's previous crackdowns as evil or inhumane. Cities like Washington, D.C. and New York have long been sanctuary cities, meaning they kicked out federal immigration enforcement and refused to work with federal law enforcement. But as soon as border states like Texas and Arizona started busing migrants to cities like Washington, D.C. and New York City, they very quickly changed their tone. Listen to this clip of New York City Mayor Eric Adams talk about the impact of illegal migrants on New York City as his community finally understands the impact.
And we can't have the historical, I believe people should be housed, but just don't house them on my block. Everyone's block is going to be impacted by this. And so we have to add our advocacy with our ability to help our neighbors. And we need everyone on board with this, because as I stated last week, our schools are going to be impacted. Our healthcare system is going to be impacted. Our infrastructure is going to be impacted. But we're willing to do our job, and we're going to do our job, and we're going to need all New Yorkers to be with us on this.
This is par for the course with leftist elites. They like to blame conservative policies that have kept our borders secure and country safe and call them evil, but they also don't want to deal with the consequences themselves. Next, let's listen to Washington, D.C. Mayor Bowser call for the federal government and National Guard's help in what she calls a humanitarian crisis.
We need space, and we need the federal government to be involved. So I've asked for the deployment of the Guard, as long as we need the Guard to deal with a humanitarian crisis that we expect to escalate. The number of people crossing the border seeking asylum, we expect to only go up. And we need to make sure that there is a national response, not an ad hoc city by city, state by state response.
In this video, she was talking about the massive impact that 4,000 migrants are having on the District of Columbia. Can you imagine if Mayor Bowser went to the border? This might be news to you, Mayor Bowser, but there's a whole lot more than 4,000 migrants illegally crossing the border every day in states like Texas and Arizona. And no, they're not just asylum seekers. There are many criminals, cartel members, unaccompanied minors, and a whole lot more questionable folks flooding the country in these migrant caravans. Now, of course, these mayors are having to ask for help from the National Guard because, yep, you guessed it, these cities are sanctuary cities. And the White House is so lost in their own delusion that they can't even answer questions about what they're doing to solve this humanitarian crisis. They always just thought this was a problem for border states. Listen to the White House press secretary's response when she was asked whether border states like Arizona and Texas should be forced to deal with the impacts of the humanitarian crisis that their party caused.
So the White House's preference would be for small towns in Texas and Arizona to have to take care of these migrants rather than a large metropolitan city like Washington, D.C.
That is not what I said. That is not what I said.
That is what you said.
No,
You said you think that
I
people
said
are
that
using
there is.
migrants.
Yeah, they are. They're sending migrants to big cities on purpose, using them as a political ploy.
So if they don't go to big cities, where should they
There's
go?
a process. I just laid it out.
There's a process, and they come to a big city, and now the mayor says she needs the National Guard.
That's because Republicans are using migrants who are coming here for who knows, because they're dealing with humanitarian issues back in their country. They're coming here for a better life, and they are being used. Peter, they're being used by Republican governors. That is what's happening.
Does any of this just make the president want to say, this is causing a lot of burdens on small cities, big cities, maybe I should just close the border?
What I'm saying is what Republicans are doing is wrong, and there is a process in place, and we should follow the process. There's a legal process in place, and they should follow it. Okay.
There's a process? What does that even mean? And after the Biden admin wiped away all the Trump-era processes that used to keep us safe, there honestly really isn't even much of an alleged process anymore. Migrants understand that the Biden administration has completely opened the border, that they have handicapped and overwhelmed Border Patrol, and there is little, if anything, from stopping them from entering the country illegally. As the Heritage Foundation pointed out in research they released last month, Biden's border policies are actively helping illegal migrants spread throughout the country, including going to cities like Washington, D.C. and New York City, at the taxpayers' expense. The flood of migrants in Washington, D.C. and New York City are not solely because of Operation Lone Star. The Heritage Foundation noted that up to 70% of Border Patrol agents are off the line and being forced to simply register the illegal crossers and actually arrange their travel to their final destination within the United States. Again, this is all happening at your expense as taxpayers. Maybe once leftist leaders start to realize that every state truly is a border state, then they will push to hold the Biden administration accountable for the destruction they are causing in America's communities. Aside from depleting our resources, we all know that Biden's border policies have created a safe haven for criminals and dangerous cartels. Just last month, the Heritage Foundation highlighted statistics out of the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, which announced the arrest of 24 sex offenders who were all in the country illegally. Just like New York and Washington, D.C., we don't want to bear the burden of Biden's policies, and neither do any other communities in the United States. And we definitely don't want to pay for it. Since it's pretty obvious that the Biden administration and Democrats in Congress are not going to act on this issue anytime soon, this absolutely has to be a top priority in the next conservative-led Congress. The Biden administration has already caused irreparable damage, but we have to do everything we can to reverse these policies, secure our border, and protect our communities. What we all can do right now is contact our elected officials, both in the House and the Senate, and demand that they come up with a plan to tackle the border crisis and enforce the rule of law. That's it for another episode of On Air with Heritage Action. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard in today's episode, please click the follow button. If you want to receive a text message each time a new episode airs, text podcast to 51776 and you'll never miss an episode. That's podcast to 51776. Hi, it's me again, and we need your help. If you like the insights and activist resources we are providing, please take 1 minute and help us spread the word. Share this episode with friends and family on social media, email, or text. We need everyone's help in the fight to hold Washington accountable. And don't forget, you are also able to subscribe and listen to episodes on your smartphone. Just open up your favorite podcast app and search for On Air with Heritage Action. Click subscribe and download episodes so that you can take them with you on the go. It's the best way to make sure you never miss a thing. Thanks.